Hey everybody. Okay, so this video is going to be for The Hate You Give, chapters 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Okay, so I promise I'm not ignoring you. I'm just reading over my notes. So we're going to start from the beginning, from chapter 9. Okay, so at this point, Khalil's funeral has happened. That was the end of chapter 8. And Miss Alfra had announced that they were having a peaceful protest march from the funeral home, the church, to the police precinct. Okay, so that's where we left off with chapter 8. So now in chapter 9, there's riots, there's looting, sometimes there's peaceful protests, and a news report states that there is a witness that has spoken up at this point. So obviously there's lots of talk as to who could this witness be. Nobody really knows because Star, since she's under the age of 18, they do not have to release her name. It would be by the parents' consent. So obviously they're not saying who it is because, you know, this is that motto, snitches get stitches. So anyway, there's also a news report, or I'm sorry, was it a news report? Yes. The cops say that there was a gun in the car, which is what led 115 to shoot Khalil. And there's also something being said that the officer is not being arrested for his actions. So there's a lot of, I'm going to call it drama, but it's not, we're really not there yet at the full drama. It's just a lot of tension that is building up now with each of these things. Okay, so with there being no gun, 115 not being arrested, we're kind of layering on the tension for things to really explode or implode, I guess. So Seven decides to say to his sister Star, like, hey, why don't we go play basketball? You know, get your mind off of things. And she's like, yeah, all right. So they leave the house and they go to the Rose Garden. I can't remember the name of the park. Rose Park? Something like, it's Rose something. So they go to play basketball, and while they're there, these garden disciples, okay, so there's two gangs, there's the garden disciples and the King Lords. Okay, so the garden disciples go over to Star and Seven and attempt to mug them, but one of the King Lords guys comes over and stops it. Okay, now this normally wouldn't happen, but for whatever reason, it did. Okay, so this is Devante who stops this mugging from happening. What the hell is he? I can hear him. Sorry. So, sorry, my kid's attempting to whisper and it's not really going very well. So anyway, so after this, Lisa and Maverick find Seven and Star and claim that they never heard them say that they were going to play basketball because they were fighting. So after they're picked up from the basketball court, they go over to Lisa's brother's house, Carlos, so Uncle Carlos's house, and he lives in the same neighborhood as white boy Chris, Star's boyfriend. Okay, Chris comes over to see Star and apologize, and he's apologizing about the whole condom incident, which is how we find out that that's what they were fighting about from the beginning. He had pulled a condom out and she was not ready, and she took great insult to this, but I don't think that Chris meant it as an insult. Anyway, so he's apologizing, and he wants to understand, like, why is she so upset with him? And so her response is, because I'm black and poor and you're white and rich. So this leaves us at the end of chapter 9 kind of like, did you just realize that he's white? But anyway, that's not really the point. The point is that she, with what's happening with Khalil and the protests, she is starting to realize the big divide between the two races, and she can't help but to see this divide with her and Chris. So anyway, oh, okay, sorry. I'm reading my notes and I couldn't even understand them. I wrote Star has PTSD. So that leads us into chapter 10. Star has some PTSD. she and Lisa were driving home, and they arrive at a roadblock, and the cop comes over to Lisa to talk to her, and Star is having flashbacks, and she's starting to kind of panic because she's like, oh my God, now my mom's going to get shot, and she's freaking out. And Lisa, you know, everything goes fine at the roadblock. They're just told they have to reroute, and you know, she panics for no reason. So we're home back in Garden Heights, and now Star and Maverick start to have a discussion about what thug life means. Okay, so now if we recall Tupac's song, it means the hate you give little infants fucks everyone. So they have this very in-depth discussion as to what they both think it means, and she tells, you know, Mav that that her and Khalil were talking about it right before he passed. So I don't remember how that happened. Sorry, I keep looking at my notes and I didn't write some stuff down, and now I'm like, oh, I don't remember things. So they have this discussion about it and how it means that society has created this world. I got to pull it up because I had it when I do my videos for this. I found the best just bear with me, guys. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay, we're gonna go to here. Chapter 10. Here it is. Okay, so here it is. It's Maverick asks Star what she thinks thug life means, and she repeats Khalil's explanation, but adds that it's about Black people and other minorities. And Maverick says, he asks her what she thinks the hate is, which pushes her to consider why Khalil and other people would sell drugs. Star says that they don't always have many ways to earn money. Maverick explains because Black neighborhoods have few jobs and inadequate schools. Black people lack opportunities. Drugs don't come from poor Black neighborhoods, yet the people who bring them there profit greatly. Drug addicts become dependent on drugs and lose their jobs. Drug dealers go to prison. Many businesses won't hire former criminals. And these factors are what create the system stacked against the Black communities. And this, according to Maverick, this system is thug life. So it's essentially that like vicious circle that in this particular novel, the Black community cannot get out of. Okay, that they're there because there's no other opportunity for them. But again, this is pertaining to the novel. Okay, so anyway. So somehow, they go back to the store. That's how it is. Okay, so I just wrote in my notes. I wrote Star and Mav talk about thug life. 2 run into Devante, but I couldn't remember how they got to that part. So anyway, they're going to the store. Okay, and they run into Devante, who happens to be the person, if we remember from the beginning, that Kenya was going to fight Denasia over. Okay, so that's who this person is. That's how we know this name. And Devante asks Mav, how did he escape the King Lord life? Okay, because he doesn't get it, and there's really only like one way out, and that's essentially death. So he's like, how did you get out? Because obviously you're not dead. So they talk about it a little bit. So he tells him that he was arrested for King. He took King's spot in prison. And that when he came out, that was it. That was the deal, that if I go in for you and take your spot, when I come out, I'm done with this life. And that's how he got out. Okay, so Devante wants out of the King Lord lifestyle. He liked the idea of being taken care of and, you know, always knowing that he has food to provide for his family, but he's realizing that like this is not something he can keep going with for the rest of his life. Okay, so he asks, you know, how do I get out, and can you help me? Because at this point he's very sad about his brother. His brother was the one at the party, if we can remember this, at the very beginning, there's the shooting that forces everybody from the party to leave. Okay, so it's Devante's brother that gets shot and killed. So, so he's saying, essentially to Star, for the most part, that he's very upset about his brother. I think it was Dalvin. Sorry, Dalvin. Okay. And that if he wasn't, Devante says if he wasn't caught up in this drama between Denasia and Kenya, he would have been able to maybe save his brother. So anyway, so at this point, Lisa and Mav are kind of arguing because Devante is also at Uncle Carlos's. Okay, so with this being said, Devante kind of makes fun of makes fun of Star for dating a white boy. And that's kind of how they got into this conversation about like, why would you want to do this? So anyway, that has nothing to do with what I was saying. So Lisa and Mav are arguing because Maverick asks Carlos to help hide Devante. That's, I think, in another chapter. I think I'm jumping ahead of myself. Yes. I'm sorry. So Devante is currently hiding at Lisa and Maverick's house. And Lisa has a big problem with this because she hears Maverick saying to her that, we need to get Devante out of Garden Heights. It's not safe for him here. And she's like, it's not safe for us, you dumb shit. So, but he's like, well, we're not leaving because this is our home. And she's like, well, it's Devante's home too, but you want him to leave because you want him to be safe. So Maverick doesn't want his kids to abandon their neighborhood. He wants them to really like rise up and change it, which I think is a big task to put on a kid's like any kid of any age, their shoulders. Okay. Anyway, so she kind of tells him that he has to choose between his family and his neighborhood. So Star then thinks that all of this fighting is because of her, because, why wouldn't we be self-centered at 16, 17 years old? Sorry, carrying on. Okay, chapter 11. So chapter 11, Star's high school, Williamson, has a protest for Khalil. And Star realizes that most of the people are protesting because they get to miss class. They're playing hooky. And they're not really rallying for any, anything for Khalil. They're just trying to miss class. But there are a few people that stay back. So Chris stays back, Maya stays back, and a few others that kind of hang back because they're like, I'm not protesting just to get out of class. Like, if I'm going to protest, I'm going to stand behind what I'm protesting. They're just being followers. Sorry. So anyway, when we go back home, we find out that Mr. Lewis, so remember he's the store owner across the street from the Mav's store, he decides to go on the news and call out King for being a King Lord, for being the King Lord, and being behind all of the neighborhood violence. And this puts a target on his back. But Mr. Lewis says that if people don't start speaking up and out about who is doing stuff, then things are never going to change. So Mav kind of goes after him and is like, why would you do this to yourself? You're going to get yourself killed. And Mr. Lewis is like, I dealt with worse during, the segregation. I'll be fine. So anyway, so the cops here, because now there's cops essentially everywhere in Garden Heights at this point. The cops hear Maverick and Mr. Lewis having this discussion pretty loudly because they're not necessarily arguing, but they're just discussing loudly about all of this. And the cops ask for Maverick's ID. And once they look at it, they start to treat him differently. Okay, and they put him on the ground, they frisk him, they tell him they're going to keep their eye on him. And Star realizes it's because they have now noticed that this is the father of the witness of the shooting. So they're going to treat him differently now. Okay, so back inside the store, Star is talking to Kenya, and Kenya calls Star out and is like, you're a flippin' coward. You wouldn't, you don't want to raise your voice for Khalil, but you would 100% do it for your Williamson friends. So after, Kenya kind of storms off because she's a little pissy about it, which she has the right to be. And Star says to Maverick that she's right, that she wouldn't think twice, essentially, about helping her Williamson friends, but that she thinks very hard about how to help, essentially how to help Khalil in his afterlife. So from this point forward, she's like, I'm going to be a voice for him. I'm not going to be this coward. So we move on to chapter 12. Chapter 12 is pretty short, but the neighborhood's getting much more intense. There's tanks, like army tanks rolling by. Seven gets kicked out of his mom's house. If we remember, Seven's mom is Aisha, and Seven's dad is Maverick. Okay, and Aisha is dating King. That's Kenya's parents. Okay, so King and Aisha have Kenya and Lyric. So anyway, sorry. So Star, kind of picks up on it, but doesn't say anything. And Seven's not going to talk about it anyway. So Maya, Star gets a text from their friend Maya, who says that they all need to talk, her Star and Haley, because things are awkward, and Maya doesn't really like that it's awkward, but Star can't really stand how Maya's like the peacekeeper between the two. So things have been very tense between Haley and Star because, number one, there was the fried chicken joke. And now, with this protest that just happened in the past chapter, they didn't see eye to eye on that. So Haley thinks that Star's being ridiculous, but if we remember, Star has not come out that she was the witness or that she knew Khalil at all. So, she doesn't know necessarily how to say what she's feeling without telling everybody that she's the witness. So anyway, Star also has to talk to the DA, and Miss Ofra tells how it was a hairbrush that 115 mistook for a gun. And this makes her think, like, how is his dad, because his dad, 115's dad, is going to give like a press conference about how, like, he's afraid to leave the house and he's afraid to do this and other things. How are you going to get your son out of this one? And she starts to feel a little better that she can be a voice for Khalil, now that it's come out that it's a hairbrush and not a gun. So she's like, oh, things are coming in our favor. Cool. So anyway, on to chapter 13. So at this point, at the end of chapter 12, they get a phone call. Big Mav gets a phone call because Maverick went to the DA with Star. She gets a phone call from Devante that he needs to get back to the store real fast. They get back. Mr. Lewis was beat up by the King Lords after, of course, his interview with the news. Are we surprised? No, not really. Anyway, so Mr. Lewis says that it's really Devante they're after, not him. They want Devante dead, and he is to be killed on sight. Those were the words that he heard. So now Maverick flips out and he goes, no, sorry, Devante. You're clearly in more trouble than what you told me originally. So why do they want you dead? And he finally admits that he stole money from the King Lords so that he could send his family somewhere safe and buy them bus tickets to go somewhere safe. So with that said, they all hop in the car to Uncle Carlos's, who's home, but he shouldn't be. So Star notices that his knuckles are all bruised and bloody, and Star asks him, like, hey, what happened? And he just doesn't answer. So Chris comes over to just see, like, what's going on. And Star finally decides that at this point she's going to tell her dad about her white boyfriend. So obviously Mav is very hurt because everyone knew about Chris except for him. And he doesn't really do much self-reflection on this as to why everybody else but him would know this. Instead, he's just very disappointed. And this is when Devante really makes fun of Star for dating a white boy. And as they're talking and joking around after Chris leaves, Devante tells her that Khalil never really was a King Lord. that King put the bandana to kind of save face, because how do you tell somebody that they're not what they think? And that Khalil was only selling drugs to pay King back for money and drugs that his mother stole, Brenda, if we remember her from chapter 6, chapter 5. So that's essentially what happens in chapters 9 through 13. I know it was pretty good. I know I do a good job. I'm just kidding. But those are essentially the salient points as to what's going on. Devante kind of like reflects at this point on the difference between him and Khalil, and that Khalil was just trying to get his mom out of trouble. But Devante is calling himself a thug because he's, you know, he's doing it to try to help his family. So in the same essence or same vein, it's similar to Khalil, but Khalil didn't sign on. He just was doing it to pay back a debt. And at this point, Star kind of realizes that she's lucky she's never had to make this choice, but she still can't get past the fact that, like, you know, that white people don't face these choices. But that's something that will come into play later. If you remember in the beginning, there was something being said about like how white people love like pill parties. Sometimes I don't know where these things come from, but anyway. So anyway, that's 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. So I think that's about it for now. Stay tuned for my next video. Chapters 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, I'll see you guys later. Have a good rest of your day. Bye, guys.